Okay, so Bhagavan says that he is doing a good job. In what sense? Because this guy doesn't have any sankalpa. He surrendered to me. Not only that, whatever he does, he's disconnected from phala sanga, desire for results. And by disconnecting that umbilical cord between his work, between his performance, and the particular aspiration for the results, spiritually he becomes united with me. And by being united with me, he becomes a Nitya sannyasi. Why is he a sannyasi? He's doing his work, he's in samsara, he's a married person, he has a job. Bhagavan explained that, you know why he's a sannyasi? He's sannyasi because he has done a phala sanga tyaga. The tyaga bhava is there. And he also is a yogi. Why? Because he has that samarapana buddhi. He's undertaking the sacrifice and he's doing complete surrender to me. So Ishwar Arpana Vidya, he's committing Nishkama Karma and he's a yogi. He's also a jnani. Everything Bhagavan sort of glorified that sort of karma yoga. Extending that, if you put it back to that context in chapter 4 and 5, there are few Purvapara Prasanga. If you see Bhagavad Gita and you read, you find that there are subtle interrelationships between different verses of different chapters, and they're all very logically organized. So Bhagavan says, whatever you do is a reiteration of whatever he has explained in chapter 4 and 5. Yat koroshi yadasnasi, whatever you eating, right? And jat juhosi dadasi yat, whatever you are danam koroshi, yat tapasyasi, for any prayashchita or for any particular purpose, you want to purify your consciousness, you are doing some sort of an anusthana, some brata, surrender that to me. Tat Purushya Madarpanam, surrender it to me. Even if you are taking sannyasa, you're reading Bhagavad Gita, you are doing dhyana. End of the day, we always offer that. You do japa for so many malas, you're supposed to again return it to Bhagavan. In the end, you do sacrifice. That is our tradition. So the whole thing also is a yajna. Japa is also a yajna. Whatever brata upasana you do, these are all different kinds of yajnas. That Bhagavan has explained. Now, he will give you certain explanations regarding what is the phala of that. Because Bhagavan has a habit of telling again and again what is the benefit of what you are doing. That provides you a rationale as to why you should continue to do that. And Bhagavan is very careful to motivate us. And he says in the verse number 28, Subha Subha Falairevam Mukhyase Karma Bandhanai Sanyasa Yoga Yuktatma Vimukto Mamupesyasi. Subha Subha Falairevam. Please understand this. Mukhyase Karma Bandhanai. These karma bandhanas, because whatever karma, there is no separate bandhana. Every karma becomes a bondage. He has explained that in chapter 3 and 4, where from the bandhana comes from desire. Doing karma per se is not a problem. If you do it without any phala icha, you are doing it for antakarana suddhi, all good. You are doing it even after antakarana suddhi with some desire, all bad. Why? It has a load of results. So if you do some brata and upasana, you call Mahalakshmi. Like for example, I was talking to someone. So sannyasis generally don't worship Mahalakshmi. You know why? What if a lot of wealth comes? Their sannyas will go. So they avoid. Of course, the Shankaracharyas do Sri Vidya Upasana, which is Mahalakshmi. Mahalakshmi is also Brahma Swarupini. But generally, the traditional sannyasis who do not have a deeper understanding of the Sri Vidya and the higher sciences of Tantra, they kind of suspiciously look at Lakshmi Narayana also, they will look at it very suspiciously because they associate that with Aishwarya, and therefore they always worship Lord Shiva because Shiva is a Vairagi and they'll go to Shiva temple, very fond of it. They are not, I mean, of course, they will go to the Vrindavans and Jagannath and all, but they are primarily devotees of Lord Shiva. Why? Because they want to inculcate habits of Vairagya. So Bhagavan says if you can do that, this karma bandhana is essentially as a result of Palashanga. So this karma bandhana, you will be liberated. How? If you do what is explained in verse number 27. Yat Koroshi Yadasnas, he has already explained it. Sannyasa Yoga Yuktama, and if you are being able to surrender like that, First, you are doing falatyaga, so you are experiencing sannyasa. And because you're continuously connecting with me, you are having that samarpana, you also become a yogi. You are meditating on it. So that sannyasa yoga yukta that sort of a person you are, vimukto mam upeshasi. So you'll become mukta. Mukta from what? All the past sanskaras. There's nothing to hold you back. And you shall get me in two ways. First, so far your body is there, you shall not be troubled by the games the senses play with the mind. We have our Jnanendriyas and they play several games with our mind. The Manas is also a game player and other senses. They try to connect you with the external world and disturb you. But they shall not disturb you because you are connected with me. I become your Vishaya. I become the point of your attention and concentration. Now let's look at how Shankaracharya beautifully explains this. Subhasubha falaihi evam subhasuve ishtanishta phale. So whatever phala, there are two kinds of phalas you can have. Let's imagine that you take some sort of intoxicant which is very bad for the body and you take it. Is it for your ishta or anishta? It's for anishta, but then because of peer pressure, something you might start consuming it. Like a lot of people experimented in the 50s with a lot of intoxicants. And there's a great book written by Aldous Huxley called Roads to Perception. And then there was another guy called Carlos Castaneda who wrote a lot of big books on these particular things and very popular in university campuses. So if you do, there is some anishta phala there. If you take it, it will affect your brain cells. Sometimes it will weaken your memory, downgrade your motivation for doing a lot of things. It can do a lot of anishta. This anishta, ishtanishta, phale, yesam tani shubha phalani. Subha and asubha, both kinds of results are possible because of the activities we do. And then say that karmani tehi subha subha phale. So these activities which can give you some bad or good results, and then Bhagavan says, and then these are the karma bandhanas. And these karma bandhanas I am going to liberate you from. That is what Bhagavan says. Subhasubhe phale evam subhasubhe ishtanishte phale yesam tani subhasubha phalani karmani taihi subhasubha phalehi karma bandhanehi karmani eva bandhanani. This is a beautiful sentence. Karma itself is a chain. But what kind of karma? Sakama karma, not nishkama karma. Nishkama karma is upasanatmaka. It is for purification of the consciousness. Karma bandhanani. These kinds of karma bandhanas, that karma plus phala together, that is karma bandhana. Taihi karma bandhanaihi evang madarpanam kurban moksha. If you do surrendering, if you throw all these karmas you are doing at my feet, that means what? You are disconnected from the palasanga, desire for results. You are saying, Bhagwan, aap jo karo. Maina jo karna tha, maine kar diya. It's like a father who sort of spends a lot of money on the children, educates them. What do you think your son is going to be? Mujhe nahi pata, Bhagwan ko pata hai. He does his work as a dedicated father. He surrenders at the feet of the Lord. Lord, I have done my duty. You have given me children. I have educated them. What you guide them to achieve in life, depending on their papa punya of last life and karma of this life, is up to you. Free me. I want to continue to meditate. Interestingly, those sort of parents get very good results from the children. Those parents who are obsessed with their children, in fact, have a lot of emotional problems. Yo ayam sannyasa yoga nama. That particular sannyasa yoga, how he explains sannyasa also mat samarpanataya karmatva. First thing is you are disconnecting from the phala. That is a kind of one. And mat samarpanayatya karmatvad yogasya. And because you are doing samarpana to me, there is some sort of a concentration, some sort of orientation of a consciousness towards me, and that is the yoga. That samarpana itself is a kind of yogic practice. Also, iti tena sannyasa yogena yuktaha. A person who is thus enriched with the experience of renunciation, of the desire for results, and surrender of his work at the feet of the Lord. That is the yoga aspect, sannyasa in yoga. Yukta Atmaha Antakaranam Jasya, a person whose internal constitution, internal mind is like that, Saha, who is that kind of a guy? Tvam, O Arjuna, you, Kaunteya, Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma. If you can become Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma, you will do Nishkama Karma and continuously hold your attention fully concentrated at my feet. Vimuktaha, san vimuktaha karma bandhanehi. Jivan eva patite cha asmin sariri mam upesasi agamishyasi. What Bhagavan says is we remember, we had discussed earlier, there are two kinds of liberation. One is called Jivana Mukti, the other one is called Videha Mukti. Jivana Mukti is the state in which you always have Tattva Darshana. Tattva Darshana is there. But then Mononasa is not fully there. Tattva Darshana has taken place. Then what happens? The person will suffer some prarabdha karma phalas. When they are over, he'll drop his body. Then he gets Videha Mukti. But if you can achieve Tattva Darsana plus Manonasa, he becomes completely Jivana Mukta. And then he's saying when the body is there, some minor alterations of the consciousness, the play might continue, might manifest as if you are still in samsara, but you are always in my embrace. And when you drop this body, you become fully mine. Because even this delusional difference, you get me in Vedanta means what? We are already Brahman. We are part of Brahman. There is no, there is Eka Eva. Eka Rasha, that is what he says. There is no couple of gunas, there's just Eka Guna, Eka Dharma, Eka Rasha, Chideka Rasha. It's only pure consciousness. And therefore, there are not many there. Nihana Nasti Kinchana. Bhagavan clarifies that in Upanishads. And therefore, here, what it means is, Bhagavan said, you shall get me. All Vedanta will become false if that is literally true. Because then I'm a Prapya, you are a Prapaka. Prapya is different from Prapaka. This distinction will make Vedanta confusing. It will become a Dvaita Vada. It will not become a Dvaita Vada. So we are just one consciousness. But what does it mean? You are doing my Upasana. I'm asking you to do Paravati. What does that mean? It means your Antakarana or your consciousness, once it becomes extremely pure, it reflects the Brahman consciousness more accurately. It is like you have a mirror and then you have some water and the water surface is kind of a small waves because of some wind or air, and then you have an earthen wall. There is surya prakasa, sun rays, they are falling on all three. On the mirror you can see the sun. On this wavering water where you have tiny waves, the sun is there, not very clear. On the wall there is sunlight, no sun. So it depends on the purity of the reflector. Our mind is the reflector. Our consciousness is the reflector. When this consciousness becomes super sharp, clear, still, quiet, it reflects that Paramartha Satya, that Brahman. That is what Bhagavan is saying. You shall get me. Get me means what? This particular Bheda, this delusional gap between you and me. And this gap exists because of lack of absolute purity in the consciousness of yours. But that will go because you are becoming completely samarapita to me. And my presence will overwhelm your human consciousness. It will become completely divine. And so far, this body is there, some minor alterations, minor apparent imperfections may continue to manifest. When these apparent weaknesses or infirmities or imperfections cease to exist, when the body drops because they associate with the body and mind, you and me shall be one. That's what Bhagavan says. Mam upesasi, you shall get me. Okay, that is how he beautifully says, you shall get me. And then he's saying, Jivan eva patite cha asmin sarire mam upesasi, agamisasi, even in this very body, through Jivan Mukti. Raga Dvesavantari Bhagavan. Somebody might doubt, okay, so, oh Lord, you have this nepotism in you. You love your devotees more. You don't love me. This kind of a doubt Arjuna has expressed even earlier. Again and again saying, Bhagavan, if you think Jnana is superior, why are you pushing me into karma? Which is very complicated. Why? Ghore mang. Why are you pushing me into that? Arjuna has a lot of questions like he is representing the human mind in Bhagavad Gita. He is a representative of all of us. So he raises these questions on our behalf. And Bhagavan answers this on behalf of the Shastras and the perfect wisdom that he has. So he says, look here, I actually don't have any raga dvesha that he will explain in the next verse. Yato bhaktan anugranhati na itaran iti. So that kind of a doubt he has. Okay. Now let's look at Madhusudana and how he sort of explains. Etadrisesya bhajanasya phalamaha. What is the phala? Yat korosi yadasnasi. If you surrender everything you are doing, what is the phala of that? Bhagavan explains. Evam anayasa siddhepi. Even though this particular bhajan method is very easy. Why? You can give me leaves, patram, puspam, phalam, tuyam, whatever you give is very dear to me. Sarva karma samarpana rupiye mad bhajane sati subha subhe ishtanishte phalaihi ये साम तैहि कर्म बंधनैहि बंध रूपैहि कर्मभिः मोक्ष्यसे मयि समर्पितत्वात्. You shall be free from whatever karma which has both Ishta and Anishta phala. Whatever Shankaracharya says, he's just giving it a small twist without altering the interpretation. You shall be free from these karma bandhas which have bad and good results because you are in samsara doing karma. Why? Samarpitatvad, because you are surrendered to me. You shall be free from the burden of the bandhas. Tat sambandha anupapattihi. This is the Vedanta he brings in. There is no sambandha upapatti. You are doing all activities, but you have no relationship with the results. Why? You have disconnected yourself from the results in advance to a mental resolution that I am not doing it for any phala but for antakarna shuddhi. It's a prayer to Lord Krishna. Sambandhanuvapattehe karmavihi tatphalesha na sansratyase. There shall be no sansarga, no connectivity. Why? You have handed over the phala at my feet. You have surrendered it. Tatasya sannyasa yoga yuktatma sannyasah sarvakarmanam bhagavati samarpanam sa eva yoga. First thing is you are removing the desire for results and then you are doing samarpana of all your work, all your efforts at my feet. And therefore, he says, yoga eva chitta sodhakatvat. And then this is yoga. Why? Because there is antakarna suddhi happening, purification like in yoga. Yogaha tena yuktaha. So you have sannyasa and yoga. Yoga, why? Because of antakarna suddhi prakriya is associated with this particular samarpana and is sannyasa because you are sacrificing any desire for the results. Tena yuktaha, that is sannyasa yoga yuktatma. Soditaha atma antakaranam yasya. Such a person whose internal mind is purified, yasya tvam, that is you, O Arjuna, tyakta sarva karmaha, you have surrendered all activities. Karma ko tyag diya, not by running to the forest. What Arjuna was interested in, but Bhagavan says, you have surrendered to me. Va. Karma bandhanehi jivan eva vimuktaha. You are doing all activities. You are going to the office, going to university, taking a class, going to your office, doing your, you are filing your time sheet or whatever they call it regarding how many hours you put in a week. You fill your time sheets and you give your toward your diaries and minutes and whatever you have done. He's saying na sanstratyase, then karmanda jivan eva vimuktaha. How? Samyak darsanat samyak darsanena, because you have a comprehensive vision of all this. What is that Samyak Darsana? Bhagavan has explained earlier. You cannot understand this Maya, but those who focus on me are able to overcome this Maya Jala. That is what is Samyak Darsanena Ajnana Varana Nibritya. This Ajnana, that everything is different. Bhagavan is one, Manushya is one, I have Phala, I have to have go to Swarga. All this Veda Drishti you have surrendered. Because if this Veda Drishti is gone, you are Ananya Bhakta. You don't have any distractions, and therefore the avarana, that blinding effect of Ajnana, is removed. Mam Upesi, when this avarana is gone, the chepa is gone, what remains pure consciousness, and that is what is Mam Upesi, you shall get me. Sakshat Karishyasi Aham Brahmasmi. He makes it even more obvious. यू शैल गेट मी, आप भगवान को पाओगे, कृष्ण जी को पाओगे. कृष्ण जी कौन है? ब्राह्मण है. आप कौन है? कृष्ण जी ही हैं मनुष्य रूप में. एंड यू विल गेट इट. अहम ब्रह्मास्मि. दैट इज आत्म साक्षात्कार एंड सेम एज भगवत दर्शन, सेम एज ईश्वर प्राप्ति in Advaita Vedanta. Bhagavad Darshana, Atma Darshana, Atma Sakshatkara, Ishvara Darshana, Aham Brahmasmiti Pratyaya. All these are one thing. Tataha Prarabdha karma kshayat, and then your prarabdha karma becomes weaker and weaker. Patitehe asmin sarire, this body falls. Videha kaivalya rupam mam upesasi, you shall get videha kaivalya. Earlier, what you have Jivana Mukti Avastha. Then you get Videha Mukti. Idanim api tadrupaha, Idanim api sadrupaha, Sun. Sarva Upadhi Nivritya. Even though you are here, you will try to remove your Nama and Rupa. I'm a man, I'm handsome, I'm very powerful, I have a lot of investment. You will drop all these adjectives and descriptions and predicates out of your understanding of who you are. These are upadhis. You drop them. What remains? Maika Veda Vyavahara Visayo no Bhavishyasityarthaha. And therefore, you shall not be Maika Vyavahara Vishaya. You shall not be a matter to be discussed the way we discuss about others. These police beings. Okay, that is what he is mentioning. This is verse number 28, and we'll go now. Sorry, now we'll go to the verse number 29. And what is there in 29, as I mentioned, Arjuna has a doubt in his mind. Okay, there is a certain. Now, this particular verse that we read, 18, 28, if you have Bhagavad Gita, please open and look at the verse 14 of chapter 4. If you are holding Bhagavad Gita, small one in your hands, go to verse 14, and what does it say? There is a interconnection. That's what I'm saying. Evam gyatva kritam karmam verapi mukshubhi kuru karmeva tasmatvam purbihi purvataram kritam. पहले before that न मां कर्माणि लिम्पन्ति न मे कर्म फले स्वः इति मां यो भिजानाति कर्म भी न सब्बध्यति. Those who know me, that I am not doing anything, he has already clarified, and he has that purity of consciousness, because he is explaining this, that I have created this Chaturvarna and everything. But please understand that I am not creating anything, because there the manifestation of guna karma in different jiva is a result of his own karmas. His own predispositions are determined by whatever desires he had expressed before, whatever karmas he has done before. That's how he's appearing. A person becomes an artist, somebody becomes a model, somebody becomes a scientist. It's all manifestation of their own predisposed mental orientations and physical efforts. Bhagavan has sort of mentioned that earlier. So if you connect that here, you'll understand that the critical thing is to sort of understand that once we surrender all our karmas, it's much easier sort of wash our hands off the results of whatever karmas we are doing. Now Arjuna has a doubt that Shankaracharya raised in the earlier sloka, saying, "Oh Lord, do you do some sort of a partition kind of treatment? You love some people and you don't love other people as much. Is that so with you?" And Bhagavan has to refute it, and he's doing it. How does he do it? He's saying in the verse number 29, Samohang sarvabhutesu name dvesosti na priyaha ye bhajanti tumang bhaktya maite tesu chapyaham. Samo aham, I am same. I am tulyaha, samaha tulyaha, sarvabhuteshu, before others, all. Name dveshya, nobody is somebody I like to hate. Nobody is an enemy of mine. Dvesasya yogyaha, somebody who deserves to be hated or envied. I don't have such a person. Name priyaha, nobody is dearer to me. Ye bhajanti tumang bhaktya, however, those who worship me with a lot of devotion, Mai te tesu chapyaham. They mai, they are in me, and I am also in them. Remember that particular verse in which Bhagavan had said that all the Bhutani are in me. Then he says, but I am not in them. Then he had said, neither they are in me nor I am in them. Why? The relationship between me and samsara is like the relationship between the atmosphere and the sky. They appear coterminous. However, there is no physical contact because the sky is too subtle. It cannot have any contact with Murta Davya, which moves. The sky doesn't move, it's too subtle. Similarly, this Brahman is not a physical thing to be connected with anything. His Antaryami is the all pervading truth and reality. I am everywhere, but please understand this Srishti Prakriya. It is essentially a manifestation. It appears as real. However, this is not fundamentally true, it is just an appearance. Therefore, Bhagavan had clarified 4, 5, 6 most critical verses, if you remember, of the chapter 9 as we did earlier. Okay, so Maya tatamidam sarvam jagatavyaktamurtira mastani sarvabhutani nachaham kesvavastitah nasamastani bhutani pasyami yogyamishwaram bhutabhunnata bhutastu mamatma bhutabhavanah. That is 5. Then he says yatha kasasito nityam vayu sarvagato mahan tatha sarvani bhutani mastani iti upadharaya. That all these things are existing in me. I am the Adhara, they are the Adheya. This is not a physical contact. It is an appearance, it's a projection. This is the heart of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta Darshana in these three verses, if you remember, in chapter 9. He has already clarified this. Now he is again saying, those who are very great devotees of mine, they have complete surrender to me. He's saying, Ye bhajanti tumang bhaktya. Those who remember me with great devotion and love. Then he says, Te mai, mai te tesu cha api aham. Te mai me tesu. They are in me and I am in them. Is it not some sort of a contradiction? Yes, it can be a contradiction, provided we do not remember what he has explained in chapter 5 from verse number 7 to verse number 11. And just if you have Bhagavad Gita, please look at this chapter 5, what he has mentioned there. You remember those slokas. Yogi yukta vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriya sarva bhutatma bhutatma kurvan apina lipyate naiva kinchit kuromiti yukta manyeta tattvavit pasyan shunvan sprishan jigran asnan gandhan gachan swapan swasana pralapan visrijan grinhan Unmission, nimission api indriyan indriyartheshu vartate ivitadharan. In 11 he says, Kayana manasa buddhya kevale indriyarapi yoginah karva kurvanti sangam tyaktvatma suddhaye. He had clarified that in verse now, chapter number 5, which we discuss right now in verse number 28 as to how you have to disconnect yourself from everything and then you do this and there shall be no problem. Okay, that is what he had mentioned. And then he has earlier mentioned that those who are very, very dear to me, O Arjuna, he had mentioned in chapter 7 again. He has again mentioned in chapter 7, if you remember, that those who are deeply surrendered to me, and those people are extremely dear to me. I love them. He had mentioned that, there are four categories of devotees I have. And amongst them, the Gyanis, the Jigyasu, not the Jigyasu, but those who are Gyanis, they're extremely close to me. That he had explained that, right? That all are, they are all Udaraha. Despite that, those who are completely surrendered to me and they are, meditating on me all the time, they are extremely close to me. And he's kind of extending that in this verse by saying, Ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya maite tesu chapyaham. And let's look at how Shankaracharya explains this. Shankara says, Samaha tulyaha aham sarva bhuteshu. I am not having any sort of partiality. I am equal to all of them. Name dvesyaha asti na priyaha. Nobody is dear to me. Nobody is somebody I hate. Now he's giving a beautiful example. Look at it. Agnivat aham durasthanam yatha agnihi sitam na apanayati. He's comparing himself with, let's imagine, an oven or a fireplace. And it's a chilly winter night. And there is a forest. And there is a small cottage. And in that cottage, to help other people, there is a monk who has set up a fireplace. That fire, there are two people who somehow see the fire and they come close to that fire and sit next to the fire. The monk is in meditation. He is not seeing anyone. And these two people who walk the long distance, sensing that there is some fire, they don't disturb the monk, they sit there and they benefit from that fireplace. So he's saying Durasthanam Yatha Agnihi Sitam na apanayati. But there's another guy who says, oh, who cares for these bloody, maybe there is a thief, why should I go to, he is going to rob me of whatever little wealth I have. So he climbs a tree and sits on some branch to save himself from any wild animals, and he's shivering and cold. So there are two kind of people. Samipam upasarpatam apanayati tatha aham bhaktanam anubrahmami. What he's saying is the way this fireplace in a deep winter night takes away the shivering cold and its impact on the bodies of the guys who trust this cottage fire, goes there, seeks refuge. The monk is in meditation, they sit quietly and they are sitting next to the fireplace and they are able to drive away the winter chill. There's another person, maybe equally good, but he doesn't. He has a lot of ideas about what this cottage may be. He thinks the house of a thief. He climbs a tree and he's shivering there. What can fireplace do? Is the fire doing any dvesha with him? No. Is he doing any love or special affection for these guys who have come to the cottage? No. That monk is also in meditation. The fire is absolutely having no special preference from anyone. Whosoever comes close benefits. Na itaran ye bhajanti tu mam ishwaram bhaktya maite swabhavata eva. So therefore, whosoever remembers me, I enter his consciousness. The moment I enter, he feels purified. What can I do? He came close to me. Swabhavataiva na mama raga nimittam mai vartate. They come to me not because I invite them, because I have any weakness for them or I have love for them. Nothing of the sort. Don't have any confusion. Tesu cha api aham swabhavata eva varte na itareshu. Why? Because they have come close to me. So obviously they will benefit from my grace. Na itaveta teshu desho vesho mama. Sro mat bhaktehe mahatmyam. This you will describe in the next verse. But before that, let's look at Madhusudana. Yadi Yadi bhaktan eva anugunnasi. This is the doubt in the minds of Arjuna, as we did in case of Shankaracharya. Na avaktan tato raga dvesa vatvena katham parameshwaraha. How can you be Parameshwara? अपने भक्त को आप इतना प्यार देते हो, उनको मोक्ष दे दोगे, हमें कुछ नहीं दोगे, ये कौन सी वाली बात है? That is the doubt in the minds of Arjuna, and Bhagavan clarifies. Na ityaha. No, 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 it's not like that, my boy. Don't get confused. Sarveshu pranishu samaha tulyo aham sadrupena. What am I? I am the Satchidananda Rupa, Sadrupena. I am that is pure consciousness. I have no name and form. Spurana Rupena, Ananda Rupena cha. That shining thing, Satta and Spurana. They are the root material out of which all will manifest. Satta. There is something exists. But how do you know it's there? There is a small ant walking on a wall. You immediately recognize there is a tiny ant because it is walking. There is Satta, its presence, and Spurana, it shines. It appears before your eyes. Ananda Rupena, the consciousness. Cha Swabhavikena Opadhikena. So by their very presence and Opadhika Nama Rupa. Like Bhagavan appears as Lord Krishna or Shiva. Antaryamittvena. Why so? Swabhavikattvena. I'm everywhere because I'm Antaryami. And then I shine. Depending on the karmas, I take some Vishesha Rupas. Ata no mama dvesa visayaha. Can you hate a certain part of your body? You might, somebody might ask, do you love your face more? You're putting some cosmetics there, you're giving yourself a shape, putting some after self lotion. What about the feet? Do you hate your feet? How can you hate your feet? It's part of your body. If there's some small bowel or some kind of some small wound, you cannot even walk. So you don't hate your feet, but you walk on them. Now it's a little distant, isn't it? So maybe you're going to meetings and all, you're putting some cosmetics, some medicine or whatever on your face to make it more, you know, presentable. So that's what he's saying. Ato no mama dvesa visaya priti vishayo va. There is no difference in my attitude. Kaschidasya sabitrasya eva gagana mandala vyapinaha prakasasya, like the sun rays. The sun rays don't do any discrimination. Yet the impact of the presence of sun rays can be different. And Bhagavan explains. Tari katham bhakta bhaktayoha phalavaishyamam. Then why should you say that I benefit my bhaktas more than the abhaktas? You said even if a brahmana or a tapasvi, if he's a abhakta, I don't care. He's a bhakta. He doesn't have anything, only flowers or leaves. I'm very fond of it. You did say that. Then he's saying, Ye bhajanti tu, ye tu bhajanti sevante mang sarva karma samarpana rupaya bhaktya. That kind of bhakti. Sarva karma, whatever they're doing, yad kuroshi yadasnasi, they're surrendering to me. Abhakta apekya bhaktanang vishesa Dyotanartha, tu shabdaha, that two is mentioning. Because in order to give special reference to the devotees, the bhaktas, who are these bhaktas? Pure beings. The antakarna is shuddha, therefore there is no place for God there. Ko aso mai te, ko aso mai te ye madarpite hi niskame hi karme hi cha sojita antakarana. Who are these? Those exist in me. Who can exist in me? Those who have purified their antakarnas, their minds. How? Through surrendering their work, niskama karma. Nirasta samasta rajastamo malasya. Rajas and tamas, these impurities they have removed from their mind by niskama karma. Sattva, udrekena, and by some sort of a, there's a flourishing sattva guna in them. Atisvachasya antakarnasya, and their internal consciousness is purified. Sada madakaram. So their mind, mad akara jasya saha madakaraha. The mind is full of my presence. It realizes it. If you are thinking about Rasgulla, what is your mind like? It is Rasgullatma. It is Rasgullakaraha. You are thinking about gold, then it becomes Suvarnakaraha, right? If you're thinking about some good power or whatever, that fills your consciousness. This fellow is thinking about God, so it becomes Madakaraha, Ishwarakaraha. Vrittim, Upanishad Manena, in that particular movement of the mind, how does it happen? How does he meditate? He's doing Vedanta Vichara. He's saying Upanishad Manena. What is that pramana? Upanishad pramana. He reads Upanishads, takes those words very seriously. Upanishad manena utpadayanto mai vartante. He has faith in me. How? Not because of blind faith. Guruji ne kaha hai. No, the Upanishad says it. Neha nanasti kinchana tattvamasi aham brahmasmi ayamatma brahma. He reads, understands, surrenders to me. Aham api ati swachayam madhiya chitta vittau. That particular conscious process which is full of me. I have to be there. That chitta has already taken position of my presence. Mad- Madhya chitta vrittau pratibinditah teshu varte. It reflects me. And what is that example? He will give it right now. Chakara our avadhanartha. I am also there. Cha te mai. I am also there. Tesu mai. Me tesu. Why? He's saying in order to explain it. Te eva mai tesu eva ahamiti. They are in me and I am in them. Then he explains it. Swachasya hi dravyasya Am eva swabhava yena sambadhyate tadakaram granhati iti. So, if you have a clean thing, a good reflector, whatever objects you put in front of it, it will immediately reflect it, right? So that is why they say don't expose your children to bad people or bad characters. The children will take their qualities. Why? They are pure like mirrors. You have to protect your children. You have to protect your mind because it will reflect whatever it experiences. Therefore, it says this. And then he says this Swachha Drabya Sambandasya cha Vastunaha Esa Eva Swabhava Yat Tatra Pratifalati iti. Whatever Swachha Vastu, transparent thing, if you put it, it will reflect whatever is in front of it. When there is Swachha Antakarana, pure consciousness, and it meditates on me, it becomes Ishwarakara, Madakara. That is what Bhagavan is explaining. Yat Tatra Pratifalati iti. Tata अस्वच्छद्रव्यस्य अपि एष एव स्वभाव यत् स्वसंबंधस्य अपि आकारं न गृह्णाति इति. Just imagine. If there is a bad reflector, like for example, you have a sand wall, okay, and in front of that you put a earthen pot, is it going to reflect the picture of the earthen pot because it is also made of earth and the pot is also earthen pot? No. On the other hand, if you put a mirror, the water surface is still, it will reflect the picture of the mirror. Why? It's white, it's swachha. That is what it's saying. यस्व संबंधस्य अपि आकारं न गृह्णाति इति अस्य द्रव्य संबंधस्य स वस्तुनः एष एव स्वभाव यत् तत्र न प्रतिफलति इति. Whatever अस्वच्छ वस्तु, it will not reflect it properly. यथा हि सर्वत्र विद्यमानोऽपि सावित्रः प्रकाशः स्वच्छे दर्पणादौ अभिविद्यते न तु अस्वच्छे घटादौ. So you look at the sun rays, sunlight, it reflects on darpana, mirror, it reflects. And same sunlight falls on an earthen pot. Does it reflect? No, not much, very little. Tavata na darpani rajyati na vaso dvesti ghatam. Now, for example, somebody might say, this particular Surya Kirana, is it having love for the mirror and it has having enmity with the earthen pot? No. Surya Kiran has no friendship and no enmity to offer. It is completely meditative, it's monk like. It spreads light all over. But the earthen pot cannot reflect sunlight wherever the mirror does. Similarly, to the temple, two guys go, they may be brothers. One brother is a devotee, the other one is a rational person, and therefore one guy goes and starts crying looking at the face of Lord Krishna. The other one looks at what are the golden necklaces being gifted to him and who are the men and women standing, and how there is a lady who is so miserly that she did not give a good dakshina. He's watching all that. The other guy is lost in Lord Krishna. But the other guy is saying, oh my God, she gave, such a rich lady, gave only 2 rupees. Look at her miserliness. He watches all these things depending on what the mind is all about. Is it like a mirror or a earthen pot? Okay, tavata na darpani rajyati na vaso stigatam. Evam sarvatra samopi swachhe bhakta chitte abhivajyemano aswachhe cha avakta chitte na abhivajyemano aham na rajyami kutrachit. I don't have any love. I'm not infatuated with anyone. Because the bhakta's mind is swachha, it's a good reflector, it's pure, I reflect in that. And I don't reflect well in the consciousness of a guy who is not a bhakta. Why? His mind is full of garbage. That is what makes it aswacha. Navad Vesmi Kastid, I don't hate anyone. Samagri Maryadaya Jayamanasya Karyasya Aparyonu Yujyatvat. So whatever is created, Bandivat Kalapataru Vacha Avaishamyam Vakeyam, he's giving a very good example. Now, just imagine, like fire, already Shankaracharya has given that example, so he's repeating it like fire. If you go close, you will benefit in winter. If you don't go close, the fire cannot help you. You know that Birbal ki kahani that, Birbal sort of got into the Jamuna and he was whole night and, Akbar said, how did you manage? He said, I kept looking at the fireplace in the top of Lal Killa. He said, okay, then you have benefited from fire. That joke is there. Therefore, Birbal, what he does next day, he puts 2 pots full of rice and water on a palm tree and says, what are you doing? He says, I'm cooking rice. How can you cook rice? It's so far off. He says, the way I benefited from the fireplace in your palace while I was taking bath in Ganges in the wintry night. Then Akbar realizes his mistake. Because you cannot benefit from fire by standing half a kilometer away. You cannot benefit from God's grace by standing half a kilometer away in your consciousness. That was the point. And there is another beautiful example is giving of Kalpataru. What is it? Now, just imagine there is a tree sitting at the bottom of that tree, whatever wish it is fulfilled. So there was this person, we have heard about this story. He goes and he fantasizes. What if I become a king and then that he's thinking about this things at the end because of his papa, he suddenly, what if suddenly a tiger comes? Because whatever wishes comes true. And suddenly he thinks, what if a tiger comes? Immediately tiger appears and kills him. Is the Kalpataru responsible for it? Or the person's mind is responsible for it? The purpose is our life, the sansara is actually like a kalpataru. Whatever we think, we get that result. A couple of days back, I was taking a walk along the Ganges. Somebody came to talk to me, and he was mentioning all sorts of things as to which guru did what, and how he amassed property, and this and that. And there was another person who was coming, and they sort of bumped into each other. And he said, "Do you know, sir, these things happen here?" He said, "Well, I have come to watch Ganges reach heaven for me. I don't have time to talk about these stories from you and hear these stories from you." He walked off. And this fellow kind of felt very offended, and I was watching both of them. The truth of the matter is that those who are going to the Ganges because they love the Ganges get benefit out of it, and those who are going to the Ganges for other purposes, they fulfill those purposes. The sansar is like a kalpataru, and Bhagavan is also like a kalpataru. You have bad desires, he says yes. You have good desires, he says yes. The phalas are bad or good. So Bhagavan sort of explained that, and we sort of goes to the next verse, and sort of he's kind of doing the varnana. If you do my anveshana, you love me. Bhagavan glorifies this particular thing by saying something very fantastic, saying, Apiche sudharacharo bhajate mam ananya bhag sadhureva samantavyaha samyak vyavasito hisaha. It's a beautiful sentence. All of us are passing through the corona and the depression and the trauma, and a lot of people sort of come to you. You must have also experienced. They come to me sometimes seeking some sort of a help because they are either in kind of mild depression or some questions, and Bhagavan is giving an answer. Apiche Sudurachara, even if you are of the one of the worst sinners, you have a lot of problem, not a problem. Do you know what is this thing? Bhajate mam ananya bhav. Without being distracted, if he does my bhajana, if you surrender to me, sadhu reva samantarbhya, he has to be considered as a very auspicious person. He's a great person. Why? He has started taking my name. Samyak Vyavasito Hishaha. And he gets that, you know, he is kind of settles down to a quiet mind and benefits from my presence. That is how he sort of says, and the commentary is it's a very short thing, and we will do that. The elaborated, whatever elaborations we will do tomorrow. If you have any questions, you can ask. Otherwise, we'll do this until first. We have a few more slokas. We'll finish by Friday, and we'll do the summary of chapter 9 on Saturday. Then we'll have Sunday off. Any questions you can ask?
Oh, Swami.
Yeah.
Swamiji, aren't Devaloka